Italian scientists in the dock on trial for failing to warn an Italian city about a deadly earthquake almost 2.5 years ago. Is this a trial against science? And is it a distraction from the real reason that so many people lost their lives? This is Inside Story. Hello there and a warm welcome to the programme. I'm Laura Kyle. They're accused of manslaughter, but the reason why is not straightforward. On Tuesday, an unprecedented legal case began in Italy. 7 scientists stand accused for failing to predict the 2009 earthquake in L'Aquila, which devastated the central Italian region. Prosecutors accuse the scientists of providing, quote, inexact, incomplete and contradictory information, so lulling the public into a false sense of security. It was at 3:32 a.m. on April 6, 2009 that a 6.3 magnitude quake hit central Italy. More than 300 people were killed and 50,000 lost their homes. So the question is, who is to blame for such poor preparation? Claudia Lavagna reports.
Massimo Cinque looks out to where his house once stood. Of the 4-story building he shared with his family, there is nothing left. The building collapsed when a deadly earthquake shook L'Aquila in 2009. It killed 309 people, including his wife and 2 children.
I was working that night and my wife called me to tell me the earth was shaking. I told her to stay calm because they said it was normal. Now I have to live with the guilt.
They are the scientists he blames for downplaying the risks posed by persistent tremors that led to that fatal night. Cinque is a civil party in a controversial trial that opens on Tuesday against some of Italy's top seismologists. The scientists met on March 2009 in L'Aquila after increasing seismic activity unnerved the locals. They told them there was nothing to worry about. 6 days later, the town was rattled by a 6.3 magnitude earthquake that left most of the city centre under a pile of rubble. Now magistrates say that the scientists provided incomplete, imprecise and contradictory information that stopped residents here from taking precautions. Now they are charged with manslaughter. The trial has sent shockwaves through the scientific community. Scientists from around the world condemned the trial, saying it's simply impossible to predict an earthquake. Researcher Alba Formicola says it's unfair to put science on trial.
They are just scientists. It's not their job to reassure people. They can't be held responsible for a natural disaster.
It could take months or even years before the trial concludes, but its outcome might change the way scientists warn the public about any future risks.
So, an unprecedented issue, and joining us today to discuss it is Gianpaolo Giuliani in L'Aquila. He's an independent researcher in seismology. In Milan, Raffaella Calandra, journalist with Italy's Radio 24. And in Copenhagen, Christian Lauter, a researcher in disaster law at the University of Copenhagen. Thank you all very much for joining us. Mr. Giuliani, I'd like to start with you because you actually tried to warn L'Aquila about the earthquake. But what happened when you tried to tell people?
Do you mean about the night before the earthquake? What do you mean?
Yes, what warnings did you try to give and how were they received?
Yes. The week before of the strong earthquake in L'Aquila, we had a lot of earthquake from January to April before the earthquake, and every day the population heard the strong seismic events. And we observed the anomalies from the earthquake and the situation. And I said always that we have to beware, to take attention, because we had in that time the very anomalous situation. The week before, we had the strong earthquake in Sulmona on 29 of March.
Okay,
in the morning.
But what? So you saw this and you
magnitude.
thought that there would be a big one coming. You predicted it, but what did the officials respond to you?
Yeah, I predict the day before that we will have the strong earthquake 15 kilometers far from L'Aquila. And after this, the Commission, the Great Risk Committee, give me an avviso di garanzia. How you say avviso di garanzia? Denounce me to the Sulmona tribunal. And I was 1 week before the strong earthquake. I was there on this denounce, and I cannot speak with nobody, with the population. Just on the night before, when I saw the big anomalies from my research, I said to the population, beware, sleep outside. And because we will have a strong earthquake maybe tonight. This is the history.
Okay, Raffaella Calandra, here we have a scientist who was trying to warn the population that a big earthquake was coming. They didn't listen to him, and now they're blaming the scientists for not warning them enough.
Yes, according to the National Prosecutor, the National Commission for Forecasting Great Risks didn't give to the people enough warnings about earthquakes risks. And for this reason, the people didn't leave their houses. In particular, the day before the great earthquake, they meet in L'Aquila and they say to the people, don't worry. All these minor earthquake that from several months were happening in L'Aquila are normal. They aren't dangerous, and this is the point of the trial. The National Prosecutor didn't say that they have to predict the earthquake, but they have, as functionary of the states, they have to evaluate and to examine the risks of this earthquake. And this is the point, because they have to evaluate also that it was in a very ancient city. L'Aquila is, or better, was a medieval city, so with the old buildings, and they have to evaluate also the consequences of a bigger earthquake in that city.
Okay.
That is the point. Did the scientists do everything it was possible to do to avoid so many dead?
Let's look at what actually they said, because on the one hand, they said that the seismic activity was normal. On the other hand, they said they still couldn't predict that a major quake was coming. I beg your pardon, they couldn't rule out that a major quake was coming. Were they not forceful enough on that second point?
Yes, they said, the scientists said that they couldn't provide that a bigger earthquake was coming. And for this reason also now all the seismology and all the scientists are defending their colleagues, because they say it's impossible to predict really an earthquake. But the point is, what is written in the law, what they have to do to give to the people all the right information. Did they have the possibility to give to the town the right information and to give them the time and the opportunity to leave their houses? For this reason, I think that this trial could be an opportunity for Italy, where there a lot of earthquakes, where there are a lot of ancient towns, and where too often, also in the past, the earthquakes made too much death.
Okay, Christian Lauter, should the scientists take some responsibility here, some moral responsibility?
That's a good question. I think we'll find out during the trial, but more importantly, I think this trial reflects a general change in our perception of disasters and risks happening globally right now, from being something of misfortune or bad luck to injustice, bad buildings and mistakes. And I think the case is definitely a reflection of higher expectations to the public response systems towards natural disasters. And in that sense, I don't really think this is a case about science or not science. It's a case about public accountability and public demands to clear crisis communication.
Mr. Giuliani, should the scientists be on trial?
Yes, this is... yes, because if there is some mistake, somebody, the population want to know if the scientist said true or not. I want to say only once, yes, at the time maybe the scientists didn't have the possibility to predict the earthquake, but I want to precise only one. After 3 months with 500 earthquakes in one epicenter, the same epicenter for all the earthquakes around, just down the L'Aquila city. This is a scientific information in a territory, in a seismic territory. Is a precise information because in each seismic territory, when you are interested from an increase of number of earthquake and energy of earthquake, you have to wait in that territory maybe the strongest earthquake characteristic of that territory.
Okay.
The problem is not if the scientists have to be or not inquired. The problem is the words that the scientists said to the population before the earthquake. They have only to say, we don't know if will arrive earthquake, but beware. Only this.
That's a good point. Okay, Mr. Lauter, let's pick up on that point.
Because nobody said, yeah,
let's just pick up on that point, Mr. Lauter, because the scientists were wrong in their prediction. But as Mr. Giuliani says, the real problem here was communicating a warning message to the public. That's not the scientists' job, is it? That's the government's job.
It is. I think one of the main points is also a matter of legal design or management design, that for anything in the world, in this particular case, I think it's obvious that you should have a trial against these men. But for a more general point, I think it's very dysfunctional to appoint blame to single persons. It is a public system that should be accountable for this sort of communication and should ensure that the right message, the scientific message, gets through to the people in the disaster area.
Raffaella Calandra, in 2002, an earthquake in Italy, 28 killed. 5 people, including the mayor of that area, were found guilty of negligence. But here, of course, we've got this case for manslaughter against the scientists. Do you think we'll be seeing, or should we be seeing, a case against the local government instead?
Probably yes, because the reconstruction is still on the lead. I've been in L'Aquila for the 2nd anniversary, and the center of the city is fast all still closed, and this is because the reconstruction works aren't still begun, and for this reason probably also the local administration have got some faults.
Should the city itself not have been more prepared? I mean, L'Aquila was destroyed in 1461, 1703. It's the highest hazard zone in Italy. What was wrong with the buildings? Why weren't they properly substantiated against earthquakes?
L'Aquila is a medieval town, so it's difficult. We don't have to think in an Italian city like for Japan. It's a medieval town with old ancient building, and certainly is more difficult to avoid a bigger consequences of a strong earthquake in a medieval town than in a modern one. But usually the public have to give the right information, just to say to the people that in case of a great earthquake there could be a bigger consequences there, just because it's a very old city. So I don't know what could be the other consequences of this terrible earthquake, because in Italy we have got a lot of ancient towns, and it's possible to imagine to empty all of these towns and to live in new buildings where there are more structure to battle earthquake. So it's a very difficult problem that the administration has to face, probably to start also a work to repair the old building and to make it safe. But just one thing I wanted to say is that in L'Aquila collapsed also some new buildings that were built a few years ago. And this is the main point, and this is the point that this trial could open, because why there are so many modern buildings that collapsed in earthquake, also if in Italy there are very often earthquake. This is the point.
Okay. Christian Lauter, I'm just wondering at this point, I mean, it's clearly a tragedy for the city and the people there, but this trial directing the blame at the scientists, is this not just a case of the residents needing someone to take responsibility?
That's a good question. I think often when you use the legal system, it's about felt injustice. And I think it's part of having a well-functioning legal system that it's able to tackle and accommodate such feeling of injustice or discrimination or mistakes, public mistakes. So the answer would be yes. But if I could just add a comment to your prior question, I would say that I read somewhere, I think an Oxford-based professor called Barry Parsons said in this debate that it's not about the answers, when will the next big earthquake come, but also about the questions. And the question should not be when will it come, but it should be what should we do to prepare ourselves when the next big earthquake arrives. I think that's a very central point that you're raising, to focus on structural vulnerability, building codes, public response systems in general.
Raffaele Calandra, do you see any changes in the wake of this earthquake, in the way people are responding to it?
I don't know if really there will be real changes. I hope so, because, in particular because, as I've just said, in Italy there are a lot of earthquakes, bigger or smaller. Probably there will be some changes in the way to give information and to transmit more warnings about earthquakes risk. Probably something will change, because L'Aquila earthquake will be really a great tragedy for all the nation.
Mr. Giuliani, what do you think will be the outcome of this trial? Do you think these scientists will be found guilty of manslaughter?
Can you repeat the end of the word?
What do you think will be the outcome of this?
Can you repeat the end of?
What do you think will be the outcome of this trial? Will the scientists be found guilty of manslaughter?
Yes, I think yes. Yeah, I think that we will have the very great experience about all this from the population. This process maybe will give in all the world our experience, and the people can learn how it's possible after our tragedy. If we will have another situation in everywhere of the world, maybe they can have more information than the information that we had in L'Aquila before they faced the strong earthquake that destroyed our city. I think this is it's a very good things, because we have in L'Aquila now all the international press or the journalists then in real time give in everywhere of the world this information that is very important for the population, the men that didn't know, they don't know what they have to do. For the next future, we will have a very big change.
Christian Lauter, how concerned are you that it will go the other way, that the public, after this trial, will start getting less information as scientists feel more concerned about speaking to the media for fear that they're going to be held accountable every time they'll get it wrong?
I think that's a major concern, and I think it needs to be addressed both in the legal instruments that you pass now with regard to disasters, and in the political public debate, I think not only in Italy but all over the world. I do not think, not being an expert in Italian law, that these will be convicted for manslaughter, but I think that the civil action that are raised parallelly might have a larger chance of succeeding. We've seen civil actions all over the world of this kind, of public officials failing their task to inform the population. Definitely, I think it's a major issue, and I think it needs to be discussed.
Raffaella, I'm just wondering what the Italian public's reaction to this is. I mean, manslaughter is a very serious charge. A lot of people saying negligence maybe, but manslaughter maybe not.
It's difficult to say how is the Italian reaction, because now in Italy the public debate is about economical crisis and all their scandal who involving the Prime Minister. So there isn't really now in Italy a very great debate about this trial that is open now in L'Aquila. Certainly we know that and we hope, the people hope that from this trial will come some changes about the rule of the civil protection, that is the administrative body who have to work about earthquake and about the protection of the people. But there isn't really in Italy a great debate about this. Unfortunately, in Italy, the people speak about prevention of earthquake or disaster like this only for a few days after this tragedy, but we don't have got a very long memory.
OK, Mr. Giuliani, the last word to you. I'm just wondering whether you expect more people to be listening to your earthquake predictions from here on in.
Yes, I think so. I hope, because we learn, they learn also from this experience. Now the attention in my person, in my research is bigger than 2 years ago. This is very important, I think, and we will maybe we will have a lot of attention, more than 2 years ago.
Okay, there we will have to leave it. Thank you all very much indeed for a very interesting discussion. This Inside Story, Gianpaolo Giuliana in L'Aquila, Christian Lauser in Copenhagen and Raffaella Calandra in Milan. And thank you too for watching. Do send any comments and suggestions to insidestory@aljazeera.net. Bye for now.